Good morning. Welcome back to Planet Doug behind the scenes for Sunday, August 13th, 2023. And it's about 6:45 in the morning. As always, just stepped out of the shower. My voice isn't quite working yet, haven't spoken at all. And I have my kettle on the boil for my first cup of coffee of the morning. And I think this morning, I'm mainly going to talk about yesterday. And yesterday I set off on my scooter with all my cameras to explore the region around Padang and shoot a video for Planet Doug. So this will be the behind the scenes story of my efforts shooting that video. The way I set up the day the idea was to ride my scooter down the coast road. So like Padang is right on the ocean, of course, and then there are a series of peninsulas and beaches and really nice cafes and tourist places all along the shore, just south of Padang. And then the Trans-Sumatra Highway, or one of the Trans-Sumatra highways, picks up after that and follows the coast all the way down to, what's the name of that? Bengkulu. And then from there all the way down to the southern tip of Sumatra. Then there's a ferry from there onto Java. So I just wanted to ride my scooter sort of down the coast a little bit and then see what there is to see. And as it turned out, I didn't get as far as I thought I would, because there was so much to see before I got to the coast highway, that follows alongside the coast. And I figured that out pretty early, because one of the first things I did, I went to the park. Like when I arrived in Padang, I talked about it quite a bit, because right near my hostel, there's a peninsula with a hill on it, and there's a big sign on it that says Padang, kind of like the Hollywood sign, big white letters. It's a very, visible landmark of Padang. So I went to that park first, and I ended up spending so much time there. And then by that point, I've been looking at Google Maps quite a bit more, and I saw more and more things I wanted to check out. So it was pretty clear I wasn't going to get anywhere near as far outside the city as I thought I was, which is fine. And my goal became just going to the port, because on the opposite side of all these, the first peninsulas, there is a big shipping port. And I've forgotten the name of it, called, Port of Teluk Bayur. Teluk Bayur. And I figured that is far enough for my day. I mean, in terms of distance, it's only 8 kilometers from here, going by the main road. 8 or 9 kilometers. Of course, I rode my scooter a lot further than 9 kilometers. But seeing the port became my goal for the day. I figured I would explore this whole area, get as far as the port, and then I would turn around and come back. And I ended up doing that. I wanted to see what this port looked like, because I wasn't sure if it was a modern port or a fishing harbor sort of port. So I wanted to take a look at that place. So I started the day with breakfast, oddly enough. I got my scooter out of the guest house lobby, because all the scooters, we bring them in at night to keep them safe. And they have a big open, the first floor of this hostel is completely open. There's nothing down there except a big empty room. So all the scooters, like scooter parking, basically. So I had to get my scooter out, and then from there I rode to a little place just around the corner where they serve a breakfast dish here called ayam bakar, which is probably my favorite dish in Indonesia. I mean, for a simple lunch or dinner, I do like, just a simple noodle dish like mie ayam bakso. I'm a simple man with simple food habits. But overall, I think the dish I enjoy the most when I get it is ayam bakar. Is that what it's called? I've already forgotten. I think it's ayam bakur. It's basically rice porridge. And when I had it yesterday morning, I was trying to think of a name because the chicken on top, like, wasn't big chunks of chicken. It was like shaved chicken, and I knew there was a name for this, and I couldn't think of what it was. And then I remembered, I think, chicken floss. So it's covered in chicken floss, and then a whole bunch of other toppings and sauces, you know, with the rice porridge underneath, and then you can put peanuts on it and other sauces. Anyway, it's really, really good. And there's a guy that serves it from a mobile stall, you know, about half a kilometer away. So I rode there, and that was where my day started. I thought it would be nice to start that day with some food, and I had my GoPros running at the time, so I shot video of my breakfast. And of course, as usual, I had a GoPro on my chest harness pointing forward and a GoPro mounted on the handlebars of the scooter, which was sometimes pointing at me, sometimes pointing forward, and I recorded my breakfast experience. Time for coffee. Anyway, not surprisingly, I got the name of that dish wrong. I knew I was saying something wrong, but I couldn't figure out what it was. It's a bubur ayam is the name of my favorite breakfast dish. It's probably my favorite dish overall, regardless of meal. Bubur ayam. So as I said, yeah, rice porridge, chicken floss, all kinds of stuff. If I could have a standing order put in for bubur ayam delivery in the morning, I would do it. I can just, like, every day at 7 a.m. just have it delivered here for breakfast. You know, that would be perfect. I'll probably have it again this morning. It's that good. The only issue, of course, I mean, it's a bit of a rough setting. It's an outdoor mobile stall, and the seating is just one small table with some plastic stools, and it's very popular as a dish in the morning. So you get a bit of a morning rush, so you may or may not be able to sit at the table. And the sun was really, really hot yesterday, and where I was sitting, the sun was beating on me, so I had to eat really quickly to get out of the sun. And because more and more and more people kept showing up, and they're all kind of looking for a place to sit, and you feel you wouldn't want to occupy a seat longer than you need to, so I just sort of like ate it as quickly as I could and got out of there, because I just had to give up my seat and get out of the sun. And then yeah, it worked out really well for breakfast, because instead of eating on the road, I basically went from my hostel to this place, had breakfast, came back to the hostel, and then I could come back up to this room, and then I was able to get more organized. And I think I even took a quick shower because I got so hot and sweaty during breakfast that, yeah, I think I took a quick shower. So I could basically reset for the day. It wasn't like I went out for the whole day and then had breakfast during the day. You know, I had breakfast, came back here. It's a good way to start the day. And the first place I went was to the park, which is called, I believe, oh boy, I can't remember anything. I actually looked this up. Gunuang Padang, which basically means Mount Padang. And I didn't know anything about it, other than what I'd seen in a video. I knew the park was there, and I'd seen a video by this American woman. Well, I better look up her name too, because I'll probably mention her a couple of times. Something like Jana Lynn or something like that. What is her name? Her name is Angelina, and that's why I couldn't remember her name, because she spells it with a Y. So it's so instead of A-N, like Angelina, it's A-Y-N, Angelina. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but I'm guessing Angelina. But anyway, she makes a bunch of videos about Indonesia, and she shot a kind of tourism video of Padang, and one of the places she went to was this park. And but as it turns out, most of the things that struck me about the park, or that I would highlight as features of the park didn't come up at all in her video, which is kind of interesting. So I'm not really sure. I'll have to rewatch it and see what I recognize from her video, because when I went there, I mean, I went by scooter, of course. I had to get across the Fun Bridge here onto the other side of the river, and then there's kind of a roundabout park right in front of the entrance to the park. I parked my scooter there in like a temporary parking lot, and then you pay 10,000 rupiah entrance fee into the park. That's about 63 cents US. Yeah, about 63 cents US. And that's the same price as my breakfast, by the way. Bubur ayam was also 10,000 rupiah, entrance to the park, 10,000. And then at the beginning of the park entrance, you follow a very gradual incline, like a pathway, a stone pathway. Very easy walk, nicely shaded by the jungle, and there's a lot of landslides. Like, landslides have been a big theme lately of all the places I've been to. But the slope of this mountain, of this park, is quite steep, and there's so much rain in Padang, they get a lot of landslides. So there's one section of the trail that had been completely wiped out by a landslide. And the fence had been ripped out of the ground, the trail kind of buried in dirt and mud and rock and trees. And the crew was there clearing the path so that you could get by. And I passed some Japanese gun emplacements, and Angelina talked about that. I always find that interesting. World War II history is always fascinating, and the Japanese occupation in this part of the world, there's always fascinating stories about that. So I checked out the gun emplacements, but then the trail started to climb. And I mean, it's not a huge mountain, or it's not like you're climbing for hours. It's probably a 30 or 40 minute walk, to get to the top. But it's steep, and the steps are sometimes quite high. So I think the average person, by the time you get to the top of this park, you're breathing heavy and you're sweating and you're a little bit tired. But it is really, really nice. I mean, I'm not a big park guy. I mean, when I get to a new city or a new region, I don't automatically look for the local waterfall or the local park. Those are sort of the last things that I would ever look for. I enjoy them when I stumble across them, but I don't go out of my way for either one. So a park is not designed to be, to strike me as, wow, I got to go see the park. But this is really nice. Very jungly, jungle canopy and shaded. Everything was shaded. I mean, if you had to walk up that hill in the hot sun, exposed to the sun, yeah, that would have been pretty brutal. But you're in the shade the whole time. And the top of the hill is actually a wide, flattish area with when I was there anyway, there's two places where you can get hot and cold drinks and snacks. And they had a fair amount of seating as well. And you get views from the top of the park in all directions. It's really nice. On one side, that's where the Padang sign is, like those huge letters. And from the ground, from Padang, from the coast, you can see the sign, but you have no idea how big it is. They're huge. Couldn't believe it. These letters are massive on that hill. And then there's a hillside right there that runs alongside the lettering. And it's a very beautiful spot because you can sit there and you get a nice view of Padang City. So you can see the city from that side. And then there's another viewpoint on the other side that gives you a beautiful view of the ocean. The ocean and the islands and the peninsulas and the coast road and all that kind of stuff. So you get beautiful views in both directions. It's cool and shady up there. You can buy water and, food and drinks and things. And that was one thing I remembered from Angelina's video. Her advice, one of the things she said was, well, you better bring water. And I can understand that because, yeah, it's hot. and you're going to sweat a lot, and it's probably higher than you think, and you're probably going to spend more time there than you think, and you would probably want to bring some water, but there's water for sale. Like, you get to the top and there's all these places where you can just buy water, so it's not like it's such a big deal. Maybe on weekdays, maybe they're not open or something. Yesterday was a Saturday, so it was pretty busy up there. I saw a lot of people on bicycles, like cycling clubs, again, cycling up into the hills, getting exercise, and a lot of people hiking, you know, up to the top of this park because it was a Saturday. I had a couple of interesting and funny encounters along the way. Way down at the bottom, where the trail, before the trail started to climb, I was coming up towards a corner, and 3 young guys, like high school age guys, came running around the corner, like full tilt, just like full sprint. And they're laughing and hooting and hollering and running. And my first thought was they must be athletes of some kind. I don't know, like they're having a competition running up the hill and back down to the bottom or something. And when they saw me, you know, they chatted, they stopped. Hello, sir. You know, what is your name? Where are you from? We had a bit of a chat. And then I went around the corner. They had just come racing around this corner at full speed. And then I went around that corner, and then I saw a whole bunch of monkeys. There were like monkeys everywhere. And then it dawned on me, these guys were kind of scared of the monkeys, and they wanted to run past them, you know, get past the monkeys as fast as possible. So it's like, okay, mystery solved. And Angelina also, in her video, she mentioned the monkeys, that they made her nervous. And they have a sign there, no feeding the monkeys. You know, don't feed the monkeys, and that's probably a very good policy to have. Because again, yeah, once the monkeys get used to being fed, then they are going to bother everybody that goes by them, you know, looking to be fed more. But from what I could tell, most people were obeying the sign and were not feeding the monkeys. So that was encounter number 1. And then nice encounter number 2 was when I got up to the top. I was just wandering from viewpoint to viewpoint, shooting video, babbling into the GoPro, taking pictures with my phone. And at one point, a family, husband, wife, and a daughter, were sitting there enjoying something that they bought from the stalls. And one of them said hello to me. And I stopped for a chat. And it turns out that their daughter, perhaps senior high school age, or junior college student, I think high school, senior high school student. She was very comfortable speaking English. She had a very natural flow to her English, spoke English well, had a good vocabulary. And so I ended up having a really nice chat with her, and then through her with her family. And yeah, that was really nice. I think people are sometimes surprised to encounter me. Like maybe they're nervous about speaking to a foreigner. And I think the family is aware that their daughter's English is quite good. So they were quite proud to see her, you know, speaking so naturally with a foreigner like me. But I tend to have so few human contacts that when I do have a chance to speak to someone in English, you know, the words just pour out. So I think on the one hand, they were thinking, oh, here's this foreigner. Should we say hello to him? Should we talk to him? We don't want to bother him. Maybe it would be annoying, you know, and they get up their courage and then they say hello to me. And then this foreigner that they thought would be so shy and wouldn't want to speak to them, just I just talked to them for like 30 minutes straight. You know, everything I'm thinking about, everything going on, you know, I'm just babbling away, you know. It's like, whoa, you know. We didn't think this foreigner would want to talk to us, and now we can't get him to shut up, you know. So it's like, yeah, I don't have anyone to talk to. So I have a lot of words built up. Hence these behind the scenes videos as well. But one thing about people in Indonesia, they're extremely aware of YouTube as a thing and YouTubers as a thing. So whenever they see me with the camera, everybody's like, oh, YouTuber. And they want to know the name of my YouTube channel and things like that. It's a very popular topic. I don't know how many Indonesian YouTubers there are, and I don't know how many other famous foreign YouTubers they know, but the concept is widely known, and everyone instantly knows what it is I'm doing, or they're assuming that's what I'm doing, and that they have quite a strong interest in it. So yeah, I was up there for a while, and then I decided to reset again. And I think that's one reason I enjoyed the day so much, is because I kept resetting instead of having one long, continuous experience. I mean, I thought about having a cup of coffee up at the top of the park. That's what you would do, right? You hike up to the top, and then there, if you want, you can have a cup of noodles, or the 3-in-1 package of coffee, bottle of water, and then you sit and have your drink or your snack. But I wanted to have a cup of coffee. I didn't even have a morning coffee here. So I was thinking ahead to having a cup of coffee, and I thought I would have one at the top of the park if it was possible. But I mean, I was up there, I was still pretty hot, pretty sweaty, kind of tired. There were quite a few flies around, a lot of flies on my legs, making me jiggle, and like a horse, a horse shakes his skin to get rid of the flies. I found myself kind of shaking my legs all the time to shoo away all these flies. And I thought, well, I could have coffee here, but I don't think it's going to be a very comfortable experience. And I'm still right in Padang City, so why don't I just have coffee later? And then I could just go back down the hill, get on my scooter, and I could zoom to any of the nice coffee shops in the city and have a coffee there. And that would be more comfortable. But what I ended up doing, I came down off the hill, I walked down, got on the scooter, and then I was riding along to the bridge. I was going to cross the bridge to the other side of the river and go to a place where I knew I could get a good cup of coffee. But I happened to pass the place where I'd stopped the other day to chat with some local men who all told me that they were fishermen and worked on the boats. And they told me at that time, we're always here. This is our spot. There was like a tree there and a bunch of, wooden benches and chairs. And we're always hanging out here. So if you ever come back to Padang, come say hi. And I keep passing this place, and I just happened to be going right by it. And I thought I could just pop in, say hi to them. So I did. I parked my scooter, and I'm thinking now maybe I have my sequence of events backwards. Maybe I did that on the way up to the park. I can't even remember. No, I think I did it after the park. I think so. But anyway, either way, it amounted to the same thing. I parked my scooter, I recognized a couple of the guys from before, and I had a cup of coffee, hot, milky, sweet coffee. And then I noticed a guy having an iced tea, and that looked really, really good too. And they get all the drinks from this little stall that's just a little bit up the river. And so I ended up having a cup of coffee and an iced tea, and that was really, really good. But the interesting thing about that encounter is that we talked about a lot of the same topics as before. So I had a long conversation with them, and I asked them a lot of questions, and I got this information about life in Indonesia, life in West Sumatra, life in Padang, mainly about how much money people make, how much things cost, and lifestyle, stuff like that. So I'd had this conversation with them before, and I thought I'd learned all these things, but on this visit we had a similar conversation. We talked about a lot of the same things. I asked some follow-up questions, and this time I got all completely different answers. So I kind of left from my encounter with these guys being reminded that if you go overseas, you go to a new country where, you're not familiar with the culture or the language or anything about the place, daily lifestyle, you really have to be careful about concluding that you know anything. Like, if I've been to Sumatra, and if I leave Sumatra and someone from Canada asks me questions about Sumatra, I think I can have zero confidence that I still know anything, because every time I talk to someone about anything, I get different answers to everything that I ask them. It's like you think you know what's going on, you think you have an answer to this or that question, but half the time your information is wrong. You really have no idea what's going on most of the time. So you really have to be careful about that. It's kind of funny. And eventually, did I do it then? Yeah, I also had an iced coffee at this convenience store coffee shop. And that's kind of when I reset, because it's like going up to the park, getting all hot and sweaty, having all these conversations, having all these encounters. And then rather than just moving on with the rest of the day with more of the same, it was kind of nice to pop into a nice place, have a cold cup of iced coffee and relax, kind of go over my GoPros, go over my cameras and batteries and this and that, and just sort of reset and get organized before you sail out again. And then when I left from that place, I ended up doing something I had no plans to do at all. But along the river, there are all these bridges, different sizes, different styles. Like very near this convenience store, there's like a cable bridge with wooden slats for scooters, for pedestrians and scooters. So it's like an Indiana Jones style bridge, swaying above the river. And I decided to ride my scooter, across that bridge. But then just a short distance up the river, there was another bridge. And then beyond that one, another one, and another one, and another one. And each bridge had a different style of construction, bigger or smaller, made out of wood, made out of steel, like steel slats on the bottom, different styles. So what I ended up doing was, I was supposed to turn around and ride my scooter back to the park and go over the park to the port. But instead of going in that direction, I went upriver instead. And I was curious about how far the river would go. But what I ended up doing was I rode a short distance across the bridge. Then on the other side of the river, I went upriver a short distance, back across the other bridge. Then I followed the river and then went over this bridge, followed the river over this bridge. So I basically went the entire length of the river, just riding along opposite sides of the river. And every time I got to a bridge, I just rode my scooter to the other side, to the other side, to the other. And that was just a huge amount of fun. I enjoyed that. And I went really, really far, way upriver as far as I could go, basically. And it was a gorgeous ride. It was a lot of fun. And then the further I went, the more the city, the urban landscape kind of dropped away, and the became more of a farming countryside, more green, more lush, more like village style as opposed to city style. That was a really amazing ride. I enjoyed that a lot. But of course, since it's my life we're talking about, I ended up losing almost all of the video of that experience. So annoying. Because as I said, I had two GoPros running, one facing me and then one facing forward. And it was the video facing forward that I thought would be the most interesting of this experience, because you would see the bridge ahead of me. You would see basically going over this bridge, then going over that bridge, and you get the driver's point of view of riding over all of these small bridges, these hanging bridges, wooden bridges all the way up the river. And I kept thinking, the video from this is going to be kind of cool. So I had this GoPro running to capture that video. And then I got to the far end of my ride, and the memory card filled up. and the GoPro, beeped and said, memory card full. So I pulled over to the side of the road and I found a little table where I could spread out my gear, and I was going to put in a new memory card. So I went to the GoPro and I powered it down. I hit the power button to power it down, and I got beep, 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 SD card error. Lost all the video. The whole video from the entire morning, from having breakfast, boober I am, going to the park, stopping for coffee, having a long conversation with this family, actually the family conversation, I didn't have a GoPro running while I was talking with the family, talking with the fishermen, all this stuff, all the video taken from this camera's point of view, all of that was on that memory card that filled up, and I lost it all. The memory card, somehow the GoPro corrupted it. And I've been trying, and I still have the memory card, of course, and I've tried to read it, connect it to my laptop, won't work. Tried connecting it to all my phones, won't work. My tablet won't work. And just keeps telling me, this card is unreadable, this card is unreadable. And the only way you can fix it is by reformatting it. I remember having this problem with my first GoPro, the Hero 7. I remember buying that Hero 7, my very first GoPro, and I brought it to Myanmar, and I was shooting the water festival there. And I went out one day for a big water festival experience, and I shot all this video that I thought was a lot of fun, was really interesting. Very unusual for me to be out there in this big party environment with water flying in all directions. So the video I thought would be very, very cool. And I got back to my guest house and the whole thing was corrupted. All the video files were corrupted. In that case, the memory card wasn't, but the video files themselves were all corrupted, and I lost all that video from the water festival. However, since I could actually see the video files, even though they were not readable or viewable or playable, I could actually see the individual files. What I did was I went online. I had an old Dell, like Windows PC back in those days, and I went online and I tracked down a recovery program. It was like a program designed specifically to fix and repair corrupted GoPro video files. And you had to buy this program. And so I bought it and I downloaded it to my laptop at the time. And then the next day, I can't describe to you how long this process was. Every single video file, this program had to chunk through it, and the repair process per file, I think, was about an hour. It just took the entire day, just dusk until midnight. I just like recovering all these video files. It took so long, but I eventually did get all the video back, almost all of it back. So briefly yesterday, I did a little bit of Googling. I don't have that program anymore because it was on my old Windows laptop. Even if I still had an account and could somehow, I tried to remember the name of this program, but I couldn't remember the name of it now anyway. And even if I still had an account and could remember the email address I used or the password I used, and I could get it again, I don't think it would run on my MacBook Pro. This was a very old program for a GoPro Hero 7. So I'm basically starting from scratch. So I did a little bit of research yesterday trying to find any kind of a program that would recover these video files, but I didn't make much progress. I was pretty tired after the end of yesterday, so I didn't have a whole lot of patience for it. And to be honest, I don't think I really care that much. I have so much video from yesterday. I'm like, whatever, It's frustrating and it's annoying. And I don't know what is happening because I haven't kept careful track of this, but over the last couple of weeks, more and more GoPro SD card errors are happening. Video files are being corrupted. I'm losing stuff all the time. but I'm not entirely sure if it's the memory card or the GoPro. I mean, I didn't keep careful track of when this happened. It's always happened with my old GoPro. Like, I have two Hero 9s. The one on my chest harness, I call that GoPro 2. And the one I have on my hand grip and on the scooter handlebars, that's GoPro number 1. And GoPro number 1 is newer to me. It hasn't been put through as much heavy use. GoPro number 2 has been used a lot. It's been banging around and crashing and shaking and rattling and vibrating on scooter and bicycle handlebars a lot. So it's older, and maybe that GoPro is failing, and it's corrupting SD cards and video files on all memory cards, or maybe by pure fluke I keep using the same memory card in that GoPro, and it's that memory card that's the problem. I'm not sure. But anyway, the memory card from yesterday, I've now taken it out of circulation, and I've labeled it as SD card error. You know, don't use this one. So I'm going to use other memory cards in this GoPro and just sort of see what happens. And if the problem goes away, then it was the memory card. If the GoPro continues to corrupt video files, then I guess that's the end of that GoPro. You know, I just won't be able to use it anymore. Luckily, there was one section of video that survived, because I really wanted that video of crossing the bridges. I was thinking back, and my breakfast video, if I lost all the video from this GoPro from my Boober I Am breakfast, I was thinking about it. Was there anything really important there? I was like, nah, not really. Climbing up the park, there was lots of times when I used this GoPro to get a POV shot of climbing up the steep incline, things like that. But I don't absolutely need that video. Going across the bridges, that's the main video that I wanted to have, and that's gone. But there's one other encounter I had, and it turns out that this encounter occurred after the SD card error. So when I stopped to change memory cards, and then that original memory card was corrupted, I put a new memory card into the GoPro and used that one for the rest of the day. And that one is okay. I've already made copies, 2 backup copies, so that has been saved. And right after I put in the new memory card, I stopped at the side of the road to buy some roti bakar, like kind of a snack. There's a snack stall. I was going to get a roti bakar, but it happened to be right beside a school, which I didn't really realize at first. And then when I was there, parked my scooter beside the roti bakar booth, kids from the school saw me, and a big crowd of them came and just surrounded me. There's a lot of the typical nuttiness. I think if I'd known the roti bakar place was right beside a school, I wouldn't have stopped, like a primary school, because crowds of primary school kids in Indonesia can get friendly. Oh man, can they get friendly. And I barely made it out of there with my life. I mean, just the amount of activity, the shouting and the yelling, everybody running up to me, you know, my name is, what is your name? And just shouting and shouting and shouting, and they crowded in closer and closer and closer. And I had both of my GoPros running at the time, but I had the sense that it was probably this GoPro that would have captured more of that environment, because towards the end I got on my scooter and I wanted to ride away, but there were so many children crowded around me, mainly in front, that I couldn't move. They were like standing right there, and it's like I kept saying, you know, like I need, excuse me, I need to get through this crowd with my scooter. I don't want to run over you guys, but they wouldn't get out of the way, right? It was like really, it was a chaotic scene. And I thought that video might be kind of interesting. And I was glad to see that video was on the new memory card. So it was saved, and I do have that video anyway. And to be honest, that was the main video that I wanted to have. So that was saved. That's good. So after all of that, I finally did ride my scooter back to the park, up and over the park, and at the very top of this peninsula, there's an intersection, and on one side the road goes higher to a viewpoint, and it was called the, oh boy, I looked this up in advance, but I've already forgotten the name of it. Something about a Gado-Gado lookout point. What is it called? Puncak Bukit Gado-Gado. So I think Puncak means, I think it means viewpoint. I think Bukit means hill, and Gado-Gado means Gado-Gado. So this is the Gado-Gado Hill viewpoint. And anything that says viewpoint, I'm all about that. So I rode my scooter up this switchback, up to this viewpoint, and gorgeous, gorgeous views from up there. The whole day was astonishing from that point of view. I had no idea Padang was so nice. I mean, the city itself is an Indonesian city, and I wasn't that impressed with the place when I first arrived. But once you go into the hillsides, go into the coastline and into these peninsulas and islands, it's gorgeous, absolutely beautiful views everywhere. And on this road, you know, that follows the peninsulas and the coast, there's just like a series of really nice cafes, kind of fancy places and simple places, so you can get both budget levels, whatever you want, and each of them has a gorgeous view of the harbors and the islands and the ocean. Yeah, it's really, really beautiful. So I went all the way up to this viewpoint, and it turned out it was a paragliding operation. So up at the top of the hill was a big flat space, and they built a large steel ramp, and I guess you get ready to fly at the top of the steel ramp, and then you run down the ramp onto a grassy plateau, and then eventually you pick up enough speed and your parasail fills out, and then you launch. So it was a parasailing place. Paragliding, parasailing, what's the difference? Beautiful views up there. And then as I was leaving, I mean, nothing was happening. There was nobody there parasailing or anything. There was no activity. I was the only person up there. And then as I was leaving, I saw this Indonesian man sort of lounging on a chair, on a bench in the shade. And then he looked like a, you know, youngish, kind of hip guy with cool sunglasses on. And he said hello to me and seemed to want to talk to me. So I stopped for a minute. We were chatting. Turned out he was the parasailing dude. It was his business. And he was trying to talk me. Well, he wasn't really trying to talk me into doing it, but he did tell me how much it cost. And it cost 500,000 rupiah for one flight. Like, it's a tandem flight, obviously. I would be, if I did it, I would be strapped to him, and he would be handling, you know, the flying. You know, you're just along for the ride. And he said, yeah, it's 500,000 for one flight. And I was mentally hemming and hawing a little bit whether I should do it. The day had been so interesting and kind of high energy. I was kind of in the mood for it. I could feel it, like, yeah, you know, I could maybe do this. I don't normally like the idea of being strapped to this guy. Like, it's sort of like you're a baby in a chest harness, you know, dangling from this other guy behind you. It's just, the whole thing just seems weird to me. If there was like a course and I could sign up to be trained to fly my own parasail, okay, that would interest me more. But somehow being strapped into this harness and dangling from this guy while he flies it, the whole thing feels goofy to me. So I'm not that automatically interested in doing it. But I remember thinking about this a couple of times during the day, that a good YouTuber would do it. Because, you know, if you're like sort of a travel vlogger, you should be having fun experiences, because those fun experiences translate to a more interesting video. I don't tend to do that as a rule. I just tend to just live my own life, however mundane it is, and record my own life. I don't go out of my way to look for fun activities. You know, I'm not doing somersaults off waterfalls. You know, I'm not parasailing as a rule. But it feels like, you know, if there was a one-to-one mathematical equation that, okay, you spend 500,000 rupiah on a parasail flight, and because you went parasailing, your video is really, really popular and gets hundreds of thousands of views, then the video could potentially pay for the flight. Then I would do it. But I'm pretty sure it wouldn't work out that way. But it does feel a little bit like, for YouTube, it's almost like you have to spend money to make money. And if you're really being like on a really tight budget and you're not spending money, then the videos don't have a lot of interest to people. So I tend to eat at very simple restaurants. I'm not eating at the fancy restaurant, but if you spent the money on the fancy exotic food at the really nice restaurant, maybe that video would get more views, and the views would actually pay for the meal. You see what I mean? So parasailing, you know, is one of those experiences. Maybe if you pay the 500,000 rupiah to go parasailing, the video will make 500,000 rupiah and pay for itself. So I do wonder whether the mathematics, you know, work out from that point of view. And I thought about that later on as well, because another situation arose. I was up there at the parasailing launch pad, and down below me I saw a beach, really interesting looking beach with a small island off the coast, and it looked like there was a land bridge. You could walk, like sort of ankle deep water, you could walk from shore out to the island, you know, through the ocean. I thought, oh, okay, I have to go there next. I really wanted to walk along the beach and have that experience. So after I left the parasailing place, I rode my scooter down back to the main road, and then down from the main road all the way to the beach. And it was an amazing area. It was like a carnival atmosphere. So the beach wasn't a sandy white beach where you go swimming and sunbathing. It's not that kind of beach. It was actually a wide, almost like a mud flat, because the land was really, really flat, and it went out for a long distance. And when the tide goes out, it created this big flat area, and the local people had come up with this idea to take advantage of that by renting ATVs, you know, the four-wheel drive, you know, ATVs. And they would, you know, the thing you do at this beach, actually I call it, in my head, I call it the ATV beach, though that's not the official name. The official name, I think, is Sweetwater Beach, like Air Manis Pantai. Sweetwater Beach, that's the name of it, if you wanted to look it up on Google Maps. But I think of it as the ATV beach because it was filled with ATVs. And it wasn't a super busy day, but it was busy enough that at any one point there were probably, I don't know, 15, 20 ATVs spread all over the whole, you know, beach. It was quite long and quite wide, and it had kind of a Mad Max atmosphere with these people on ATVs, you know, roaring up and down and doing things. But that struck me as the same thing as parasailing. If I were a good YouTuber, I mean, I had no interest personally in renting an ATV because I've rented a scooter, and I spend hours and hours every day enjoying riding around on the scooter. So I've got my riding fun quotient covered, you know? What I wanted to do was walk up and down this gorgeous beach. I was not interested in, going up and down on an ATV because I've got a scooter. Like, why am I going to double rent? But I was thinking, again, that a good YouTuber, a Paddy Doyle, for example, he would go parasailing. He would do a backflip off the waterfall. He would rent the ATV, and that would be his video. And people would watch it because it's exciting and it's fun, and he can woohoo, woohoo, as he rides along. And I'm not a woohooer. And I did find out, though, a lot of people stopped to take pictures with me. That was kind of funny. I was walking along the beach at a very slow pace, but everybody else was like zipping along very fast on the ATV. So everybody could track me down. They could catch up with me quite easily. And it was almost like I was being hunted by a wolf pack or something, because everyone wanted to take a photo with me. That's a very common thing in Indonesia. And I was going to comment earlier that it hasn't happened as much this time. My previous trips to Sumatra, I went mainly to the Medan, Lake Toba, in North Sumatra, Banda Aceh, that area. And back in those days, every day I was taking pictures with people. I couldn't step outside. I couldn't go to the corner store. I couldn't go anywhere without people, chatting with me and then wanting to take a picture with me. It just happened all the time, practically every day. But on these visits, it hasn't happened as much. It happens, but not nearly as much. So I thought, okay, maybe the fad is over. But if the ATV beach is any indication, the fad is not over, because all these people would just come roaring up to me on the ATV and say, oh, can we take a picture with you? And I would take a picture with this group, and then other people would see this happening. And I think these people are, they're having their holiday. They're on vacation. They're having a good time. So they're spending money to go to the beach and rent an ATV, and they're there with their kids and they're roaring up and down. And then they just fold me into their holiday experience. I just become part of the fun of the day, the joy of the day. And they just add me to the day and say, oh, can we take a picture with you? And, yeah, sure. So I was taking pictures with all these people. So I had the chance to ask them, well, how much does it cost to rent an ATV? Because again, I was having this, a good YouTuber would do this idea. And I was wondering, how much does it cost? And they said it's 100,000 rupiah for 2 hours. So, it's a reasonable sort of cost. And, but I didn't do it. No, I walked the entire length of the beach, and then I walked out to the island, and then back from the island, and then all the way back the entire length of the beach. And this was after walking, up to the top of the park, Mount Gunuang, all the way there, all the way down, riding my scooter the entire length of the river, crossing all the bridges, coming back, I'd done a lot, and I was out in the sun a lot. It was hot, and it was physically draining, and I wasn't really in a ATV vehicle woohoo kind of mood. And to be honest, at gut level, I don't like them. The whole ATV jet ski thing, if I go to a beach and there's 10 jet skis, it's annoying. It's not the environment I'm looking for in a natural setting, and ATVs are in that same category. It didn't really bother me because this beach was designed for that. It's an Indonesian beach for people who want to have fun. Loud music playing, ATVs roaring up and down the beach, and then they have all kinds of these motorized scooters with what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a not a sidecar, but a big thing where 4 and 5 people can sit in this little carriage, and then they hire a guy to drive them up and down the beach. And these little cars are decorated with, you know, big beautiful hearts made out of flowers and funny little animals, and they have music playing. And you know, Indonesians go there to have fun, and fun means lots of good food and drinks and music playing and roaring around on ATVs, right? But I mean, my instinct is the typical, maybe Western one, I don't know, that 200 ATVs ruins the beach. I mean, we wouldn't automatically want to go to the ATV beach. We want to go to the secluded beach where it's quiet and there's palm trees and waves crashing on the golden white sand. You know, that's our image of a tropical beach. At least mine anyway, not necessarily, you know, ATV. Yeah, that's pretty funny. But anyway, I was not a good YouTuber, and I did not rent an ATV. I just went walking, plodding like a boring YouTuber. That's what I did. And so, after the ATV beach, I finally went to the port, Teluk Bayur, I think it's called. And that was going to be a complete surprise because I hadn't seen any photos of it. I haven't seen any videos of it, no description of it. I didn't know what it was. And I was going there mainly with the hope that it was going to be an old traditional fishing harbor that maybe was modernized a little bit. But I was hoping it was going to be a bit like the river here in Old Padang, that it was just going to be jammed with massive old fishing boats and fish markets and all that kind of activity. That's what I was hoping it was going to be, and yet deep down I kind of knew it wouldn't be. I don't know where I got the impression from, but I had the impression that no, it's probably a modern industrial container style port. And that's what it turned out to be. The ride there was gorgeous. Like everything that all the roads I rode along, like from Padang to the ATV beach, and from the ATV beach on to the port. Beautiful, winding, curving road, high in the hills, giving gorgeous views of the ocean, really nice. And then I turned a corner and I was like, okay, there's the port. And it was the definition of modern and industrial. Yeah, big modern port with all kinds of industrial looking things. There were those big round containers that they contain like gas and oil and chemicals and all that kind of stuff. It's very familiar to me from my home in Canada, which is Sarnia, and Sarnia is a petrochemical town. So all along the river, there's like every massive petrochemical company in the world has a base there. And they have, you know, so I'm very familiar with what this port looked like with all these giant containers. I don't know exactly what they ship out of this port, but I've seen things like that before. And you got the big cranes everywhere that can lift containers and put them on ships. And then there were these big silos. When I was there, I was wondering what they were for, and I still don't know, but my guess is they're meant for coal, because I was reading that coal is a big product for this area and gets shipped out of this port. So it's kind of funny to come from natural beauty all the way along the coast, and then I came down into this, I wouldn't call it, what was it? It's like a modern industrial place. But yeah, really crazy change in atmosphere to suddenly be in the heart of all this industry, all this modernity. Trucks everywhere, dinosaur trucks, you know, spewing out clouds of exhaust, roaring engines, security everywhere. I kept thinking about security because each one of these places, you know, it was all gated. This was all like industrial, very sensitive areas. So they don't let anybody just wander in and out of these places. and there was gates with security guards, and you saw security guards everywhere going around on motorcycles and things. And there I am, you know, bristling with cameras, you know, GoPros filming everything as I go through there. And I was just waiting for security to track me down and arrest me or something. But I made it all the way through without security looking at me. It was really weird, though. I wasn't sure if I was ever allowed to be where I was. I felt like I was going through gates where they should stop me and ask for ID or ask for permits or something. But at all these gates, there were these booths where there would normally be security checkpoints, but they were just empty and abandoned. There was nobody in them. So I kept riding past all these gates and nobody. I kept thinking, am I allowed to go this way? Like, am I going in the wrong direction? Like, maybe there's another public road that goes around it, and I somehow ended up going right through the middle. But yeah, there's never any security at these gates, so I just kept getting in deeper and deeper and deeper, and then I finally got out the other side. And I found myself in a really busy area. I'd obviously linked up with the main West Sumatran highway, and I wanted nothing to do with that area. I was not in the mood for all that heavy traffic. So I figured, okay, this is the end of my day. This is as far as I'm going to go. And I figure, okay, the day's done. All I'm going to do is turn around, ride back to Padang. I might stop somewhere on the coast to have a cold drink, and then I'll take out my GoPro and I'll say, you know, that's the end of the day, and see you in the next video. All I really wanted to do was record a conclusion to the video, which would take just a couple of minutes, right? Haha. At that point, everything died. Like, I was at my last GoPro battery. All I needed was a couple more minutes of battery power to record some kind of a conclusion, and everything died. So I had no more GoPro batteries at all. And it was like, and at that, it was like the worst possible time for this to happen because of the timing. Like I said, I only needed 2 minutes of battery life. That's all I needed to end the day. It's like, for Pete's sake. Thinking back now, I could have just taken out my phone and just went, see you in the next video, and I would have been done. But for some reason, I never even thought of that, because I also have my 360 camera with me. So I thought, okay, now I can't use my GoPros anymore, but I can switch over to my 360 camera. So there I am at the side of the road, this industrial wasteland with the roar of the traffic, these huge trucks everywhere, and I'm trying to switch over from GoPro to the 360 camera. So I get out my 360 camera. Luckily, the batteries were charged. I'd taken care of that. But it turns out the memory card was full. So there, in the middle of this chaos, the sun, I was in an exposed area, exhaust fumes, these trucks. This huge truck came up behind me at one point. I guess he wanted to park where I was. I had all my bags open. I had my GoPro gear everywhere, the mounts. I'm disconnecting my GoPro mounting system because I have to change it over to the 360 camera mounting system. I'm spread out everywhere. This huge truck comes up behind me, honking his horns. Like, for whatever reason, he wanted to park right where I was, so I got to get out of his way. It was sort of like being a hamster in a field of rampaging elephants. I mean, it was just a crazy place, and that's when I'm trying to do all these camera adjustments. They never show that in the GoPro commercials, like, buy a GoPro, it's so exciting. Well, you try changing your GoPro battery and memory card at the side of the road in normal life. It's crazy. Anyway, so I'm there. And now I have to somehow find another memory card that I can put into my 360 camera. And of course, you've got to change over the microphone from the GoPro to the 360 camera, put in the 360 mounting system, get all that in place. And you have to test everything. So then I have to do, test, and you're trying to play it back. And in the hot sun, it's really hard to see the screen of the 360 camera. And it's not a camera I use every day. So each time I'm like, okay, like where are the, like I want to format the memory card, but where is the menu for that? And I'm trying to swipe this way, this way, this way, and I can't find the right menu, and I'm trying to set it up, and it's really complicated and confusing. And I finally managed to do it. But yeah, that was a very, very bad timing. And to be honest, throughout the entire day, this had been a problem. The GoPro battery or memory card would cause a problem at exactly the wrong time. It felt like the whole day I've been involved in an epic struggle with my technology. And I started to reflect that, well, okay, if you really want to shoot video a lot about your life or for YouTube, whatever you're doing, you really need to invest in the right gear. Messing around with a bunch of stuff that only half works is really nightmarish. It's like, it's hard enough just to do the basics. So you should make it as easy as possible. So like in my case, for example, I have a lot of these 64 gigabyte memory cards, and they're not big enough. They fill up way too quickly. So if you're going to be shooting video, don't get 64 gigabyte memory cards. Buy 256 gigabyte memory cards at a minimum, and then you can put in a fresh card in the morning and you're done for the day, because you're not going to fill that up on one GoPro in one day. So instead of like all day long constantly changing memory cards, just get a high capacity card, spend the money, get the high capacity cards. That's it, you're done. Same thing with batteries. Don't try to get away with exactly the right number of batteries because you don't want to spend the money on one more battery. No, get 100 batteries. I mean, you know, go out with all the batteries you're going to need for the whole day. Don't try and get by with the minimum number, because you're just going to end up in trouble. Or somehow get some kind of a GoPro battery pack. That means you can just get 10 hours of battery out of this unit and somehow build it into your life, because constantly changing the GoPro batteries all day long, over and over and over again, especially if you're running two GoPros at the same time, because now you've got two sets of batteries running out, two sets of memory cards constantly filling up, crashing and corrupting and getting SD card errors, and it's a lot. I mean, if you're going to be filming at all, that's hard enough if everything works perfectly. But if you're filming and everything is constantly a struggle, it's too much. So you really need to, I think, invest in, you know, like even this GoPro that I'm using, the one on the chest harness, it's probably reached the end of its useful life. So it's still a GoPro Hero 9, which in terms of its capability and video quality and feature set, perfect. I don't need anything more than what the Hero 9 offers. But of course, GoPro has moved on to the 10, the 11, and soon the 12. And again, if you are a serious and professional YouTuber, you should keep up with the times. You know, get the new model and make sure your gear is always working, right? Otherwise, yeah, by the end of yesterday, man, I was exhausted. And I had no idea how dehydrated I was. Boy, I think that was a mistake. I couldn't believe it, because I came back here and I spent a long time dealing with my memory issue, and I made a decision to deal with that more behind the scenes, techno babble. But one of the problems is I have two portable hard drives that I use to store you know, archived copies of my final videos. Like if I finish a Planet Doug video and I upload it to YouTube, I keep a copy of that video, like a final copy I keep as an archive. Because I'm thinking, well, what if something goes wrong with the YouTube channel and all the videos get deleted or something? Well, at least I have a copy. Like, it makes sense to keep a copy of the original video, right? It's like, why not keep a copy? So that's what I've tried to do, but the video files are huge. They're too big. I don't know how many videos are on my channel now, but it's a lot, and you need terabytes of memory to store it all. I mean, you can't, unless you're living in a house with servers and, you know, it's not realistic to keep a copy of everything. You just, what are you going to do? I'd have to hire a donkey to go with me everywhere in the world so the donkey can carry 300 pounds of portable hard drives just to store everything. And I have been trying to store everything, so I still have the original copy of every video I shot in, you know, Malaysia or in Bangladesh, in Thailand, in Myanmar. Ever since I started shooting video, I have copies, I think, of everything. And I keep buying new portable hard drives when the old ones fill up. But it's gotten to the point where it's unreasonable. You can't carry that many portable hard drives around with you. And here on this trip, I only have two. I have two portable hard drives. It's 2 terabytes on each one. And they're both full. Like, I use them to copy. Like yesterday, I shot, you know, whatever, 200 gigabytes of video yesterday in total, and I need to copy them to my portable hard drive, and I copy to one and to the other. So I have 2 backups. And once I have 2 backups, then I can reformat my memory cards and start all over again. But if I don't have copies on my portable hard drives, I have to keep the memory cards. I can't reuse them because those are my only copies of the videos, if you see what I mean. But I've been really, really struggling with this memory thing. And yesterday I said, okay, this is ridiculous. I've had enough. So I went onto my portable hard drives and I took hundreds of gigabytes of old videos, like the original videos that I've uploaded to YouTube, and I just deleted them all. Gone. Both hard drives, just deleted hundreds of gigabytes of old videos. So now they're gone forever. I have no archive copies of them. I have no backups of them. The only copies that exist are the ones on YouTube. And that's not a great thing. Again, if you were a professional YouTuber, of course you'd want to keep an archive copy of the originals, but it's too much of a struggle. So yesterday, when I got back here, I was so fed up with technology problems. I'm so stressed out. I just said, okay, this is ridiculous. And I just grabbed, like I said, hundreds of gigabytes worth and just deleted them all. So now I had several hundred gigabytes of free memory on both of my portable drives. And I took all the video from yesterday and copied them onto one and then copied them onto the other. And that took hours to finish, hours and hours to do. And then when that was all done, it was into the evening, and I thought, okay, I wasn't even going to have anything to eat. I was too tired to go eat. I'm just going to go to bed. I'll get food tomorrow, you know. The only food I'd had the whole day was the bubur ayam that I had for breakfast. That was the only food I'd had for the whole day. I'd eaten nothing else. And I figured, I'm so tired, I can't be bothered to get anything to eat. I was just going to go to bed. But then I thought, you know, get something to eat. So I forced myself to get dressed, and I went out into the world, and I went back to this chicken restaurant, which is right up the street. My first meal there wasn't that great. I'd had a bad experience with the chicken in particular. It was really kind of nothing, and very little chicken. But this time when I went back, I got a nice big piece of chicken. So I think the bad chicken I had there was sort of an anomaly. So I was pretty happy I went back there. But then I ordered a cup of ice water. So I got this big cup of ice and water with a straw in it, and it came to my table right away, and I grabbed the straw and just went, holy crap, the cup emptied like that. And luckily they had a container there, like a big container you could refill your water cup. So I got up from the table and I went over to the container and I refilled it, and then as I was walking back to the table, I started to drink from the straw again. I didn't even let the water get cold, and before I'd even reached my table, I finished cup number 2. It's like, oh, that's already done. I went back, filled it again, went back to my table. A couple of minutes later, I let the water get nice and cold with the ice. Just sucked it dry so quickly, and before I knew it, all the ice was gone. So then I went back to the counter and said, could I get another ice water? And they filled the cup with, ice and water. And while I ate my chicken dinner, I swear I drank 18,000 gallons of water. I could not stop drinking. I just drank and drank and drank. Every time I filled the cup, I drank another one, drank another. I had no idea I was so thirsty. I was probably on the brink of passing out from dehydration. I had no idea how thirsty I was. I wasn't feeling thirsty, but I could not stop drinking because I'd been out in the sun all day, like a hike up and down the beach, up and to the park, on the scooter, everywhere I went. I did a lot, and I guess I just sweated out so much liquid. I was practically bone dry by the time the end of the day came around. And when I went to that restaurant, I was like, man, I could have mainlined and put a garden hose down my throat and just turn it on because I need to replenish. Man, I drank and drank and drank and drank and drank. So clearly I was not taking care of myself during the day. Yeah, definitely needed to eat more and drink more. And I think that is the end of the story of my adventures from yesterday. I can't think, well, a ton of other stuff happened, but I think I will leave it there. Just talking about all the technology problems, though, and all of my physical struggles and exhaustion and dying of dehydration and probably dying of hunger without even realizing it, makes me smile because over the last couple of days I've been watching a video from a very famous YouTuber here in Indonesia, Christian Hansen. I think that's his name. Yeah, Christian Hansen. He's from maybe Norway or Denmark, I think Norway, but he was an expat living in Jakarta. He lived for like an investment banking firm or something like that for years. So then he quit his job and he decided to go on this big motorcycle adventure where he wanted to be the first person to ever ride a motorcycle all the way from the western tip of Indonesia all the way to the eastern tip of Indonesia. And anyway, so I'm watching his videos and it just makes me smile because compared to him, I'm such an amateur. Like, he's the consummate professional in terms, like, all the things I'm saying, like how a good YouTuber would rent the ATV, a good YouTuber would do the paragliding and that kind of thing. And he, of course, does all of that sort of stuff. And I think he understands this concept that you spend money to make money. It's kind of like Mr. Beast. You know, he's the ultimate example of that, and he talks about it all the time, where he's like, well, all the money I make from a video, like he might make $3 million from a video, he takes that $3 million and invests all of it in the next video. So it's like he'll spend $3 million on a video in order to make $3 million, you know, that kind of thing. So like Christian Hansen, he's at the level where, I mean, the video that I watched was about Maratua, Borneo's most exotic island. So he's on the island of Maratua. And in this video, he's not on his motorcycle because he went to this remote island, which was all about, you know, gorgeous luxury beachside resorts, swimming with whale sharks, you know, swimming with sea turtles, manta rays, taking speedboats out to these sandy things, going to these, you know, all these incredibly exotic islands everywhere, island hopping trips. So all of this would be relatively expensive, and he's staying, you know, in luxury accommodation. And I'd love to get sort of a behind-the-scenes story from him, though, because when he sets off, he is loaded with camera gear. He's got everything with him all the time. He's got like a big, beautiful Sony A7 IV, I think, the latest Sony full-frame camera. And he has it mounted on a quick-release buckle on his knapsack. So he's got a camera bag, and on the front of it, he's got a quick-release buckle for his Sony. So he's got this huge camera right there mounted, and he's got a GoPro mounted over here, and then, you know, like mounted on the shoulder strap, and he's got another GoPro in his hand. I think he has a third GoPro that he gives to other people so that they can film him from a distance. And then he's got a camera bag with his drone in the back. And he just goes about his business like it's the easiest thing in the world. Like, you never see him struggle. You never see him mention that, oh, you know, the battery isn't charged. Oh, the memory card got corrupted. Oh, this broke. This isn't working. Oh, I forgot to plug in the microphone. Like, I guess most people don't talk about that sort of stuff as much as I do. But I mean, he goes through, I see him leave his luxury resort, like carrying, must be like, I don't know, 40 or 50 pounds of camera gear. And throughout the entire day, you see, oh, that shot is from his Sony, that shot is from the drone, that shot is from this GoPro, that shot is from the handheld GoPro, that one is from that GoPro. And he must combine, like he has to copy all the video files from all these sources and keep them organized. And I'm exhausted just thinking about it. And yet he seems to just sail through it effortlessly, like it's nothing at all to do all of that. It all just sort of works flawlessly, you know? Yeah, I do wonder about that. All the gear. I noticed a few months ago, I watched a couple of his videos, and he did introduce a 360 camera to his arsenal, but I haven't seen it since. He started using it to try it out, and he said he was very excited about it. It's like, oh, there's a new 360 camera. It can do this, it can do this, it can do that. But it quietly seems to have disappeared. So maybe even for Christian Hansen, adding 360 video was a bridge too far. That was too much. And I can kind of understand that. But yeah, I'd love to hear him babble like this about what's involved. In general, of course, I'm not saying I would want to do what he's doing, because this is similar to what I've talked about with Itchy Boots, where you watch her videos of her trip through Africa, and the scenery is so amazing, the adventure seems so exciting, and it gives you this idea, it's like, wow, that must be so amazing to do, I'd love to do that. But when you stop and actually break it down about what exactly she's doing, I wouldn't want to do any of that, because there just isn't enough time. She's moving too fast, going to too many places, not spending enough time anywhere, like no time to relax. As I said the other day, you know, she would ride her motorcycle hundreds of kilometers to get to this national park, a place she picked out in advance because it's such an amazing place, and then hike kilometers into the national park and then sleep in a tree house in the middle of this amazing place. And yet, as soon as she gets there, the day is over, and then she wakes up the next morning and leaves. And then from my point of view, maybe I don't have the same energy level. I need a lot more leisure time. I need a lot more downtime. If I went to all that trouble to get to that national park, and I found myself in this treehouse, I'm staying for a week. It's like, okay, I'm done. I'm here for a week, you know. I need a day just to recover from the effort of getting here. Then I need a day just to do reconnaissance and enjoy my tree house, and then another day to go for a little walk here and there. I mean, I need a week to make up for all the effort of getting there. But she'll go to all that effort, spend one night and go. Then she gets to another beautiful spot after an entire day of traveling, spend one night and then go. And then Christian Hansen is doing the same thing. It seems, I'd have to, you know, think about it more. It's like I kind of watched the video in the background while I was doing other things, so I wasn't really focused, but it seemed like he would wake up in the morning in this, you know, on this resort island, and then rapid fire sequence of events where, okay, now he's on a speedboat heading out to this turtle sanctuary, and then he went to this place where you dive into these underground water caves, and then he was there, and then he was there. It was like 4 different major events, and then he says, okay, and then it was time for lunch. It's like, what? Like, one of those things would be an entire day for me, and I need a day to recover from that thing. But he would do these 4 huge things, and then he would say, oh, okay, now we're getting back in the speedboat to go back to the resort for lunch. And I'm like, what? I thought that was like a week of activities, but that was all in one morning. And then he has lunch at the resort, and then the next scene is him walking out of the resort with all his cameras again, his Sony and his GoPro and this GoPro and that GoPro and the drone. And he goes out for a whole afternoon of adventures, going to an English school, going to this place, going to that place. And that was just one day. And I'm like, how? I mean, how do you even have batteries to get you through all those activities? How do you, like, he's in the water all the time. So he's got to take all his gear, all his cameras, get everything off, get them, you know, get a waterproof GoPro all set up with a different grip, a different handle, different that. Now he's swimming underwater and he's filming all these things underwater, but now he's back in the boat and he's got to put all his gear back on, get his Sony, get his microphones, and do this and do this. It seems like if in real life you really saw what that day consisted of, there was probably like 3 minutes of actual living, and the vast majority of the time was just getting organized. Like, I could describe the scene where I was trying to switch over from my GoPros to the 360 camera at the side of the road on my scooter in that industrial wasteland. And that nearly did me in. I was like pulling out my hair, practically screaming with these trucks honking at me to get out of the way, the exhaust fumes, the roar of the traffic. I'm just trying to switch from one camera to another, and that just about did me in. And I think Christian Hansen would do that 20 times a day as he constantly switches from one camera system to another. Fly the drone, land the drone, get some high quality B-roll with his Sony, now put that away, now get the GoPro underwater, now do this, now do that. How does he even do it? And then how does he go back and copy all those video files, keep them organized, recharge the batteries? I don't know. It's insane. I have no idea how it works out. As I said, you know, if you told me that tomorrow I'm taking a speedboat to a remote island where they're turtle sanctuary, they have all these turtle hatchlings that they're raising and setting free in the ocean, okay, that's my week, right? I'll do that. That'll be a whole day for me. And then I need the entire rest of the day just to recover from the experience, and another day to edit that video. But for him, that was like just one thing out of 6 out of 7 events that he did in that one day. I have no idea how he manages to pull that off. And he looks so healthy and full of energy and smiling and happy all the time. I would be a wreck, you know. I went out for a little scooter ride yesterday, and at the end of the day, I was a complete wreck. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of funny. So some random thoughts there to end today's behind the scenes video, and I may go see if I Am Baboor is there. It's a Sunday today, so it might not be open, but I feel like I need some breakfast this morning. So that's it. That was the story of yesterday, and I'm shutting down. I'll see you in the next video.